Morning, this is Keith Flynn here, Tulsa Fathers Rights lawyer, attorney Brian Jackson, also of the Tulsa Fathers Rights team. We're going to talk a little bit about domestic incidents. Now, obviously, not ideal, but sometimes it does happen. Domestic violence occurs. So what do you do if you have committed an act of domestic violence, right? Well, first of all, get away. Get away from the incident. Allow yourself some time to cool off. Maybe this will lead her not to call or report it just because, there's no longer a threat. The other benefit to that is rather than being on scene when the police arrive, they're going to file what is called an out-of-custody affidavit and refer it to law enforcement, which is going to give you time to talk to a lawyer about what happened, also line up a bondsman, and wait and be able to watch for issuance of that warrant. And you may very well be able to surrender and make the process of going in custody much quicker and easier for you. Now, obviously, if you're not on scene, they can't use your statements against you. There's no Jackson-Deno concerns, meaning that we don't have to worry about whether or not you have admitted you're guilty. Another thing being that if you're not present on the scene, you're not present during the investigation. The only person that can identify you as being on the scene is the victim of the crime, and she may very well have other credibility issues and a reason for saying that you're there. Also, you want to consider that law enforcement officers cannot actually observe your physical condition, whether or not there's markation on your hands or some kind of other wounds related to the struggle. So, at the end of the day, get the fuck out of there.
Some other things to consider as well, when you do leave, obviously don't talk to anybody about whatever happened. It goes without saying you don't want to talk to the police about it without consulting with a lawyer first, but something a lot of people don't think about, you don't want to be talking to third parties about it either. You make an incriminating admission to a third party, if that person surfaces later, they are a witness, and if you make a statement against your own interest, they can testify to it. So the best advice in a situation like that, shut it. You go to a friend's house, go get a hotel room, whatever. But the first person you should be talking to about whatever happened is a lawyer, and not your friend, not your mom, not your whoever, because you don't want to create witnesses. Something to do if you find yourself in that situation, as well as leaving, is if it's during the day when you have the ability to immediately get a lawyer, like Keith said, probably want to get a card for a good bondsman. At some point in time, if it is referred to for prosecution, you may need both.
I wanted to bring it back a little bit to something he said about going to a friend's house. Now, we've got to be concerned about collateral witnesses and witnesses identifying your locations on or near the time of the incident, right? So before you go to your friend's house, you might take some time to yourself. If you're not drunk, take a drive around the town. If you are drunk, don't put yourself in a public place where you could be arrested for other things. But, give yourself some time. As far as it goes, you will not have to testify. You have a right against self-incrimination. And so the time between when you are wherever you are and when you show up to your friend's house, a period of 3 to 4 hours, 2 to 3 hours, that will just be a gap period. And the only thing tying you to the location will be the testimony of the state's victim.
Something else that to be aware of, you probably, if you have been drinking and you are in that situation, you probably want to allow, as he said, allow yourself some cooling down time and allow yourself some time to sober up. Probably wouldn't be a good thing to have some neutral third party, especially if you're going to go check into a hotel. You don't want somebody at the front desk to be able to tell the police you were drunk. Mm-hmm. That doesn't help you. And if your wife is saying you were drunk and violent, having yourself show up at the hotel drunk doesn't help.
Could corroborate it.
Yes, exactly. So it's something to be aware of. Don't keep drinking. Alcohol as I'm sure all of us guys know, alcohol makes you stupid. And you don't want to go off and take a bad situation, make it worse.
Yeah, we've already done something stupid. if we're at this point. So let's not make it any worse, right?
Don't call her. Don't try to communicate with her. If it's gone to the point where violence has occurred, communication time is done. You don't need to be talking to her. Then all that's going to do is dig you in deeper.
Mm-hmm. And potentially make things worse in terms of, I'm sure, there's two-way street on every domestic violence incident. There's always, competing interests at play, volatility, right? So just get away from her, and that'll make sure that nothing gets worse.
The only other thing I would say too, and this goes along with don't talk to her, is for crying out loud, stay off of social media. I mean, that's a generally good rule anytime you find yourself in a legal situation, but in something like this especially, don't get on Facebook. I mean, just stay off. It's all you're going to do is cause yourself a problem, and attorneys check Facebook religiously when it comes to situations like this for exactly that reason. So social media is another one. Don't. Find somewhere to go cool off, get away, shut your mouth, and go find somewhere you can spend the night that isn't home.
Last but not least, it goes without saying, but don't talk to your kids about it. Obviously, don't talk to your kids about it. For obvious reasons, you don't want to involve them in something like that. You don't want to expose them to those kinds of things, but also it could have problems, for you going forward in terms of incriminating yourself. This was Keith Flynn and attorney Brian Jackson, Tulsa Fathers' Rights team here in Tulsa, Oklahoma at the Work Law Office. Give us a call.